Okay, as the next stage of evolution in the refactoring of the welcome controller, I was talking about how, see what we end up with, this is what I was talking about one time when I spoke to the group about little islands of methods. You can get little islands of methods and attributes. All of these Meetup members, Meetup pass total, Meetup, and Meetup request, see how all four of these methods go together. That's showing a high degree of cohesion. They're all, they're cohesive, they stick together. And yet it forms like an island that's like not pertinent. Especially if this controller had more than one action, then it would be probable that these four methods here are for accessing data. These actions are for carrying out the user's wishes, from the browser. So what we wanted to do is find a way to encapsulate these into a functional unit. Now, one way of doing that Rails provides is called a concern, and so for that you would create a model. It would actually be in a different folder, but I want to just demonstrate it right here in place. I've kind of pasted in a little template that I use because we have the extend active support concern included. Here's what you do at the point in time when this is included. You could have it do certain things. In this module that's inside here called class methods, well, active support : concern will add these class methods to the controller that includes this concern. So what this allows us to do is to replace, or we can grab all this. And now these are not going to be class methods of our Meetup client or of our welcome controller or anything. These are just going to be some instance methods if we go this route. And I keep saying if we go this route because while I like the idea of grouping these together as an encapsulated feature, I don't like the idea that if I go ahead and include this as a concern, then I'm actually littering up the namespace of my controller because I'm adding all these methods to it that are like Meetup methods, which kind of like defeats the purpose in a way. So I'm taking you through my thought process. You might wonder why did I show you this and then immediately I'm getting rid of it. Well, I'm taking you through my thought process because I thought, well, I could make it into a concern. But then I thought, well, here's the bad things about doing that. I'm kind of littering up my namespace of my controller. Does not need these methods. And I'm going to show you why. But so first we're going to yank all this stuff out. We're going to make this a class. Now I've kind of got this naming convention for things that are like a REST API client. I call it a Meetup client. Okay, so now I have a class and it has these four methods. Okay, and now I don't even include them in here. And one thing I notice is now this business has come out because it becomes part of this. Okay, so he's the net HTTP client, and he completely encapsulates all clienting, if you want to call it that, being a client. Then it's a little unfortunate. I'm saying, this is all also accessing the Meetup information. And so why do I have him, why do I have this guy like doing all this? So I'm gonna just grab everything because I'm gonna end up with a controller that's there just to provide the action, and I'm gonna have an object that can do all this junk. All right. Okay, now it's not going to be the index method anymore. I don't know, Meetup client get. That looks kind of like a ring of that. It's got kind of the HTTP verbness going on there. And I think I left those intact, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clean all this up like so. You know, I could string these out like this, but I kind of like having them vertical for this little situation. So I'm going to make it pretty by doing it this way. Oops. Okay, so now I've got a method that just returns the array of 3 things that I need. And I will assign them this way. And what is this? This is my Meetup client new get. Okay. Now, you could argue that this is a bit superfluous here. So what I will do is I will create a method which is going to be a class method, get. His only job, create a new instance and call get. Send it. Create a new instance, send it the get method. Purpose, I like to keep things hidden as much as possible. It helps me keep from breaking important vital principles. And so now all my methods are protected, and I have a very simple public API to this Meetup client class. It just has a class method get, and so using it is just this simple. This idea, or RubyMine thinks I've misspelled this, so I'll make it agree with my spelling. And I've got my JSON down here. I don't need my JSON anymore. Okay, so there's my new class. There's my new controller, much simplified. One of the big advantages here, you know, right now, the WelcomeController, as it's been defined at this time, the WelcomeController has been doing all this Meetup business. Now I have the flexibility that if somebody else, you know, some other controller, or I've got some different context that wants to use this class, I take it. Oops, I needed that comment, didn't I? So I want to grab that whole thing, there's my controller. Looks like a controller now. What is his problem? It's like he just... Oh, I know what. Well, now I've gotten rid of it. So what I would do here is probably go into my lib folder and create the new class. I can say create a new Ruby class. This was my Meetup client. And yes, I would put that under get. And here it is. Whoa, this is kind of like, let me get it over here where you can see it. And paste that in. It's no longer a concern, so it just provides. I like to cut out words. We know it's providing, so this is support for interacting. Support the Meetup.com REST API. This is the yeah, this whole protected business, it could be overkill. I'm just giving you some ideas because it really depends on how do you want to use this. You know, what is going to be your usage? In our case, you know, we had these 3 variables. It was handy not to have to make the 3 separate calls right here. That is one scenario. So this is kind of my big get. You know, it's like go get everything I need. If I need to be more granular than that, then that's where I might go. What I might do is say, you know what, the get and the actual Meetup request down here, these should be protected. I like to kind of put those down the bottom. RubyMine doesn't like the way I reformatted this, but I'm going to insist. I just like it to look like that. That's my own personal preference. Okay. Now this opens up a lot of possibilities, which I'm not going to sit here and do, but I do notice group ID is always the same. Apparently not. SIG ID. SIG ID is always the same. So there's possibilities here of being able to extract some commonality. The idea being that you could build these sets of properties that would represent like the common set that's always used, and that way your individual property lists become much shorter, more manageable, less mistake prone is the point. So you start to notice excuse me, you start to notice things like that, you know, when you take the common pieces and you start ordering them. Okay, what's status? Status is not even always used. order. So we might go like this. Limited events, false, false, false. Not always. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, but anyway, well, you just see this particular format by listing things this way has actually given me a better frame of reference for doing a lot of comparison, finding out what the commonality is. Like I say, this might be, you know, way overkill for the particular scenario we're looking at, but you know, in a production system, I mean, you want to try to make things reusable, less brittle, less mistake prone, less repetition. And the good thing is we've been able to completely encapsulate everything inside of this one class that now we're free to use from, you know, whatever context we might need to be able to grab all these guys. Now I will say one more thing that we could do would be that we might want to see, it's not really, here's my point. I'm trying to figure out how to put this into words. This isn't the greatest, creating a bunch of member variables in your controller that you're going to then later access in your view. And I could see wanting to do this. What's this? Oops. Let's no longer return these three things. Oops. I don't even know what happened there. It's like I went and opened up something. Well, things are ticking inside my head right now. As I'm doing this, I'm noticing some other possibilities of what I can do to continue to clean this up. I don't need these comments anymore. So what I've made is some member variables. Okay. Now I've noticed that these are like accessors of informations. They're always doing a JSON parse of this response, right? So now we've actually gotten rid of that. Now I've noticed I have three accessors because these are like the same exact, you know, they're like called the same thing, right? So, once I've gotten this information, do I want to keep getting it? I guess that's a good question. I could do it this way. What this says is, once I've gotten the information in this particular instance of the Meetup client, once I've gotten the instance, then that's it. It's like an immutable object, is what I'm trying to say. Well, now when I do a new get, I've got an immutable object. Since I'm creating an immutable object, then I might as well have the initialize do the get for itself. All right, so now we still have the class method for outsiders to use to say, hey, I want to get this guy. All he does is gets a new instance. Boom. So the instance is right there. Now that class method get instantiates a new object which it returns, and inside the initialize he sends himself the get instance method here, which initializes all of his members. So I might just go ahead and leave it like that, although there's no real strong reason to. Since it is immutable, I can't ever do this. But tell you what, I want to leave it because it makes good semantic sense to me that later I might want a way to get those members. This is no good because see the get, what it does, yeah, never mind what I just said, because the get is not a good place. So I'll just initialize everything right there. It's in the initialize, so I know that I don't do that. Okay. Now I will say that one thing this never does. This does not attempt to do any kind of error checking. I guess I'll just leave that for the interested person who would like to go more into the making this more robust and guard against any kind of errors that could occur. Anyway, this just kind of shows you how you could refactor this and return your controller into the world of being a controller instead of being a controller and a Meetup client. Now the controller utilizes or delegates everything over to a Meetup client to do everything he needs. The one thing you would have to remember to do is in your views, you would use @Meetup. This is what, okay, it's coming back to me now. We're going to need a way to access these. So this is really the wrong way to do this. We're going to need a way to access these individual pieces from this guy. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to grab these like so. Is it mad? so now we've got nice little, or kind of a lazy initializer approach, so we can get rid of our initializer altogether. And now we have a good, clean way to get what we need. We've kind of simplified it down to the point we don't really even need this. This isn't doing anything for us at this point. So, as you can see, lazy initialization, we create a new instance, and then whenever we need to go get our members, they get initialized, but they don't get repeatedly called. So you change this to a new. Okay, so now your at Meetup could be used in your views, and you would say, down in a view, you'd say like at Meetup dot Meetup or Meetup members. Okay. All right, thanks. That's all for now. So I hope you enjoyed this.